whole string of great Jewish medieval commentators trying to uncover the plain meaning of the text of the 5 books of Moses without regard and without deference to the rabbinic tradition. So Prager is following in a long line of Jewish commentary trying to uncover the plain meaning of the text. Now there are many meanings of text, and the rabbinic tradition is...
Where do you get this crap?
Well, hey, look it up, folks. Look
What
at
do
the
you
Rush
get?
Bomb.
This is crap. It's not that, hey, we just found this book, what's it about, let's make our own interpretations of it. What the hell is that? Isn't that, what? We have what's called a Masorah. A Masorah is a tradition of something being taught from one generation to the other. This is exactly how it was taught. When Rashi and Rambam and Ramban sit down and write something, it's not something that they pull out of their ass. It's not their own interpretation. It's what they learned from their rabbis in yeshiva who taught it orally, let's say, from what they learned, that there's always an oral Torah coming down. There's always more tradition, and that tradition is preserved generation after generation, and then it's finally written down. That is our Mishnah. That is our Talmud. That's our Gemara. That is how the Rishonim worked. To say, oh, they don't know, they didn't have any tradition whatsoever it's retarded. It's ignorance.
Folks, look it up for yourself. There's a whole string of medieval Jewish commentary on just the plain meaning of the text of the 5 books of Moses without deference to the rabbinic tradition. So I'm not the Rush
Bunk.
I didn't write it. Look up the works of the Rashbam yourself. And the Rambam and the Ramban. So you try to uncover the plain meaning of the text.
Don't listen to him.
You made a whole bunch of points there, so I don't remember. Can I look at your notes?
I don't really have any.
You don't have any notes?
No. I just said.
Oh, okay. So
my notes
also
are
the
Prager is a retard. That's my notes.
Also, there's no prohibition on premarital sex in just the 5 books of the Torah. So you can read into it by saying the Ramban learns it from the text. Let me finish. You have your chance to talk, and I have mine. So when the Ramban says that he deduces no premarital sex from the expression no immorality, he's reading into the text. It's not there literally in the text of the 5 books of Moses. Now, the rabbinic tradition developed the teachings that premarital sex is forbidden, and no one can just study the 5 books of Moses and think, oh, God's cool with premarital sex, or even the Torah's cool with premarital sex. But there's no explicit condemnation of premarital sex in the literal meaning of the 5 books of Moses.
In the 5 books of Moses, on their own, without the oral Torah, which was never designed to be a law book. The 5 books of Moses, which is called the written Torah, is not a legal book. That is not Judaism. That is not the 613 mitzvahs that we follow. The 613 mitzvahs, Judaism, that is what we consider our legal book. That is the oral Torah, which was given to us on Sinai from God to Moses, handed to the entire generation in the desert, and from every generation to every generation transmitted orally till it was finally written down in the Talmud and written down by our Rishonim, our commentators, and then sealed in the Shulchan Aruch around 500 years ago and been commented on ever since. That is Judaism.
So I wasn't talking about Judaism once again.
No, but to say, oh, we're not going to find, you're not going to find explicit laws. Yeah, and you shouldn't be looking for them. And Prager, if he talks about, you got to ignore this, because you can't look at the words of the written Torah on their own and start poskening and then deducing by the fact that certain things are missing here.
So
and
who started poskening? I didn't posken.
No, but he
didn't posken from those things.
But he said, oh, you can see here that God's not,
He didn't say anything about God being not against lesbianism. He didn't say anything about poskening. He was just teaching the 5 books of Moses. you're talking about poskening, and you're talking about God says, and you're talking about Judaism says, but none of those
Let's
things
bring up.
came
Let's
up
bring
in
up.
the
Let's
post.
bring up your post.
Okay, let's bring up my
Let's
post.
bring up your post.
Okay, let's go to the videotape. It's still 2-0.
Wait a second. One more thing. Let's show everybody your feet again. Hold on. Baby's not wearing shoes. Okay, we got that covered. All right.
That's my tradition. The custom of my father is to me a law. So, I'm Luke Ford, aka Levi Ben Abraham, here with Rabbi Rabs. Check him out at rabs.com. And
Lesbianism, right there.
so, why doesn't the Torah ban lesbianism?
Yeah, right there. Why doesn't the Torah ban lesbianism? It does ban lesbianism. I can't stand this. This aggravates. When you say the word Torah, Torah means Judaism. Torah means the combination of the oral Torah and the written Torah. The Judaism absolutely bans lesbianism. His headline is, why doesn't the Torah ban lesbianism? When I see that, my eyes just pop. Explain yourself.
Yeah, the Torah has more than one meaning. The basic meaning of Torah in Judaism is all of Judaism's sacred texts.
And then you quote
Wait, let me finish.
Jacob Milgram.
Is all of Judaism's sacred texts, so that when a great rabbi today makes a halakhic a decision in Jewish law, that too is Torah. Now, there's also a narrow meaning of Torah, so when we have the weekly Torah reading, we're not going to be reading from some 16th century Jewish sage in Italy, we're going to be reading from the 5 books of Moses. So in its narrow meaning, which is clearly the meaning of this blog post, why doesn't the Torah ban lesbianism?
You should write, what doesn't the written Torah?
Is the 5 books of Moses.
You should write, why doesn't the written Torah ban lesbianism? That's what you should have written. Right? That's what you should have written. You should, why doesn't the written Torah ban lesbianism? Which it does, but, right, not explicitly.
Not explicitly.
Okay, you should have written the written Torah. When you say the Torah on its own without qualification, you mean Judaism.
Not necessarily. It's contextual.
Nope. It's ambiguous, but the most common, it's known that when you say the Torah tells us, you mean Judaism tells us. You mean the oral Torah together with the written Torah. That would be a false statement to say, why doesn't the Torah ban lesbianism? You needed to write the written. Then the next problem you have is that he quotes Jacob Milgram, who's a heretic. Okay? Blah, blah, blah. It says the Torah does not care about lesbianism, and I'm burning here because the Torah absolutely does care about lesbianism. And then you write, the answer is all of these laws presuppose the male is the actor of sex. You said laws. Laws.
Yeah, the laws of the written Torah.
The laws of the written Torah.
Yeah. Just like we have.
I just got through. You need to do some basics. Judaism 101. The written Torah is not a legal book, and we don't have laws. We don't learn laws from it. The laws are from the oral Torah. The oral Torah is our legal book.
I never said here the halakha doesn't ban.
You said that all of these laws presuppose the male as the actor. These are laws you're talking about. You're treating it like it's a legal book, like it's coming down, boom, 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 boom. These are the laws. You have a very incorrect understanding of the basics of Judaism.
Okay, folks, you can make up your own mind.
The written Torah is not a legal book. The laws of the Torah, the laws of Judaism, are from the oral Torah. The oral Torah absolutely bans lesbianism. Everything in that post needs to be cleaned up. I would just delete it. I'm seriously, I was ugh. I was just mortified when I read that. So I thought I would bring that up.
Great by me.
Is that okay?
Totally.
I'm never going to be invited here again.
It's fine by me.
All right, so the next thing. You have another thing you want to talk about? You want to talk about Brett Farr?
Go ahead.
Because the thing I want to talk about from last week was we talked about Palladino and that whole thing.
Yeah.
And then like the next day it all flip-flopped.
Yeah.
So I wanted to talk about the flip-flop.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so you bring them up to speed what we talked about last week.
So Carl Palladino got together with this I'm going to call him Orthodox rabbi, but rabbis won't like that expression, in New York, who wants to start like a Tea Party movement within Orthodox Judaism. And Palladino read out at a talk to some Orthodox rabbis in Brooklyn a speech that had been written for him